Well, hey there. Today, December 5th, marks one of the most pivotal and important days in our country's history. What say you? What's December 5th? Well, I want to tell you a story. We'll get to what and where in just a second. Check out this excerpt from a very great book. Washington's army was withering away from desertion and expiring enlistments. Typhoid fever, typhus, and dysentery were taking a terrible toll. There was little hope of dislodging British General Howe and his 20,000 troops in Boston. That is until Henry Knox arrived with his supply convoy of heavy armaments. Firing down on the city from the surrounding Dorchester Heights, these weapons created a decisive turning point. An act of near desperation fueled by courage, daring, and sheer tenacity led to a tremendous victory for the cause of independence. This exciting tale of daunting odds and impervious determination highlights a pivotal episode that changed history. This story is, of course, about Mr. Henry Knox and his noble train. Reading the excerpt from Mr. William Hazelgrove's book, there's tons of works on what Knox and these men did, but I'm going to share a little bit of what I know of it. So, as we know, it's December. Stuff is not looking good. We haven't yet declared independence. That didn't come for months in the following summer. The British are in the harbor in Boston. Things are bleak. 20,000 of some of the best soldiers with the best armada out there in the water, in the whole world. It's not like the best dudes in the area, in the whole planet. And we don't have the stuff to fight. Well, earlier in that year, in May, a couple other American badasses, one of them who turned out to be not the nicest guy, a name that you've heard, you probably remember from your history class in grade school, Mr. Benedict Arnold, and a dude named Ethan Allen, another stone cold badass. Ethan had a group of guys called the Green Mountain Boys, worth you reading about as well. These were really like the first special operations guys that America had to offer. These dudes went up and kind of just lifted the fort off of the British. You ain't going to need this. And it wasn't much of a fight, but they snuck up there, not sure of what was going to happen, and we had possession of it. At that fort was 60 tons of cannons. Think about that, 60 tons. There was no roads. There was no expressways or freeways or trains. This was forests, mountains, lakes, creeks, etc. At the time that this is going on, General Washington is beside himself. This guy is at the height of his power, so to speak, physically. He's a big, intimidating character. He doesn't understand why these American troops are not training properly. They're not clothing themselves. Congress is not doing what they need to do. These guys don't listen. They're unruly. He's writing a letter saying, how am I supposed to win this republic, this battle, this liberty thing that we're all talking about without people to do it? And in comes a character that Washington had his eye on, a kid, 20-something years old, a guy named by the name of Knox. He was a bookseller. He had no fighting experience. He was not a soldier. He was not a warrior, but he was a learned man because he worked in a bookstore and owned a bookstore. He had read about fighting, about the artillery, about how things are placed on a battlefield, about how troops are to be moved. And he said, Mr. Washington, General, I have a plan. General heard him out. And he said, I'm going to go up to Fort Ticonderoga that we took this past summer, and I'm going to bring those cannons back. This wasn't just around the corner. This was like 300 miles. And again, there's no busy roads up there. This is muddy trails, some of which these guys had to cut. So they go up there and not even having a real plan on how they're going to get 60 tons of metal back down to Boston. When they get there, they have to start building some odd 40, 45 huge sleds. And again, think about this. These are huge hunks of timbers. These guys have marched hundreds of miles through the cold, and now they got to go to work with axes and saws, chopping down trees and playing carpenter, right? They've got to go out in the countryside and buy, borrow, cheat, steal to get oxen. It's a crazy time, right? Imagine you're at home and all of a sudden some muddy, frozen dudes are like, hey, we're going to need your horses. We're going to need your oxes. And they had somewhere around 80 oxen. They loaded these things up and they started dragging them back to Boston. They were gone for weeks. There are letters that he wrote, that Knox wrote, saying, I don't know how we're going to make it. Lakes are not frozen for them to drag across. So they've got to just wait. They've got to just sit and freeze and wait for lakes to freeze up enough that they can drag these monstrous cannon. It's pretty crazy when you think about it. They're hacking their way through the frontier, literally cutting roads to get these cannons back to Boston. All the while, because this plan is so outlandish, it is so crazy, nobody, especially the British, are concerned. These British are out in the harbor with some of the biggest war vessels man has ever created. They can lay waste to this town. But they've made a blunder because an underdog decided that they were not going to just lay there and die. They weren't going to take it. So they took, how did Hazel Grove say it? Daunting odds and impervious determination. They took this task underway and they got it done. Weeks later, he shows up. He shows up and they drag these cannons up to Dorchester Heights. And now they'd already done some planning. Knox said, here's what we're going to need. We're going to have to build this, that. We're going to have to chop stuff in here. They got all the cannon. They got all the shot. They got all of the powder. And they drove the most powerful Army and Navy on the planet out of Boston Harbor, striking a decisive blow, letting the British know, hey, wait a second now, we're not just playing with some shopkeepers here. We're playing with dudes that are determined to win. That happened this day in 1775 that they arrived there at that fort. I visited that place with my kids about 10 years ago this year. And as you enter the tunnels into this beautiful fort that was there long before us, very much worth you reading, before us as in the Republic, there's a tunnel. And as you walk into it, inscribed on the wall, it says, through this hall walked. And there are names like Ethan Allen, Henry Knox, George Washington, and others. And you're like, wait a second. I'm standing in this tunnel that these giants of our republic walked through, probably stinking of horse flesh, right? Sweat and gun smoke as they strolled into this place once upon a time. It's fascinating. The stuff that these men were made of is the same chunk of meat that you've got inside of you. That heart that beats beneath your breastbone pumps the same blood that moved through their veins. It's the blood of a free man. This day to me is equally amazing as our Day of Independence, as any other day that we celebrate in the Republic. Because if it wasn't for this day, we would not have beat back the British out of that harbor. If it wasn't for this day, we wouldn't have gone on to the next win and the next win and the next win. And the true lesson of the cause of liberty isn't just these couple individuals or the thousands of individuals that did great things. It was all of them that moved the needle a little bit every single day, doing a little, a lot, often, moving that needle a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. I like to think about it like a wheelbarrow full of liberty, full of work to have that liberty. They carried it as far as they could, and then their time here was done. Now it's your turn. Now it's my turn. We need to carry that load on behalf of the nation. We need to carry that load on behalf of the cause, as Washington so liked to call it, this great cause. So on this day, mark it on your calendars. December 5th, 1775, Knox and his noble train got that thing going, man. They moved those cannons down to Boston to beat back the British and win our independence. If you want to read more about it, this book is definitely one of my favorites. I've talked about this one for many a year, and there's plenty of them out there that I really enjoy the way that Hazel Grove told the story. There's an Audible version of that one as well. You guys, I appreciate you. I hope that you enjoyed a little bit of a story here. Be well. Don't be dickheads. Remember that every little thing that we have right now can be stripped away. It's incumbent upon you. It's incumbent upon me. and our fellow brothers and sisters that are members of this republic to keep it alive. Nobody owes you anything. Nobody. It's up to us, and only us, to make sure it's here for the next generation. Be well, don't be dickheads. Christmas is coming. The holiday blend from Ignis Lux Coffee, it's pretty sweet. Bennett just roasted some up yesterday and we packaged today. Delicious notes of cinnamon and cardamom. Yes, it's very nice. I'm also wearing a shirt here today for my guys at Tango Down. Tango Down, fantastic company, makes my preferred AR magazine. If it looks a little different than what you're used to, I've got a couple videos up. I'll link one in the description. These magazines are made to defy a bunch of problems that plagued certain types of platforms, as well as being ridiculously reliable, very robust, and very long lasting. Kind of like our Republic, kind of like Mr. Knox. Be well. See you soon.